Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason live on this Thursday, the day after the Fed minutes. I'm going to say this, we're going to have a lot of fun today as the Federal Reserve allegedly, and I say allegedly, released the minutes from their last Fed rate hike, which was that first week of February. Actually, it was the first day, right? I believe it was the first day of February where Jay Powell gave us a brand new word. Yeah. Let me tell you what it was, boys and girls. We have disinflation. Yeah, we're really worried about that because inflation is starting to really come down. Miraculously, after inflation apparently actually didn't come down, the minutes yesterday came out, and Jason, everyone was concerned about inflation. It was incredible. And yet they went from 50 basis points to 25, and nobody dissented. They voted 9-0 that they were in on the deflation story until, obviously 3 weeks later, the deflation story, I guess, didn't happen. But Jason, somehow in the minutes, guess what? They were all worried. They were so concerned about inflation that none of them dissented, and all of them voted to only raise rates by 25 basis points. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Maybe the minutes of the meeting were written yesterday.
Don't have you.
Oh, let me try again.
Jason.
Jack.
Anyway, I will say this. We are having some there you go. We are having, maybe I should have started. I got too excited. I got too excited. 800-951-0592. allamericangold.com is the website. It is, Jason, how cold is it up there in Colorado?
Well, it was -5 when I talked to you. It's with the sun that's come out, we've improved to -3.
-3 before wind chill. And apparently the transmitter, we have something going on. We don't know what it is. Our engineers are out there working on it. I'm going to take a crazy guess here, and that the wind chill factor, especially out where our transmitter is, it was probably getting close to 20, 30 below.
Yeah, I don't know how much. I heard some of the wind this morning, and the wind chill can be affected by different things going on in the air. But I would say at least -10 to -20 wind chill, at least minimum. So it's pretty cold. With the sun coming out, that'll improve. But I'm glad I wasn't awake a few hours ago. It must have been really bad.
Yeah, so the terrestrial radio is down right now, but the stream is up. Everything else is up. We're just working on trying to get back up. And again, hopefully, as Jason said, hopefully as it warms up, whatever the issue is gets resolved quickly. But I apologize. I just got fired up because these guys are so full of it. And of course, nobody's going to say anything but me. I don't know. Already, they have very little credibility worldwide. We can pretend that they do. If you want to pretend, go ahead. China doesn't care. The Saudis don't care. Heck, even the Iraqis said, you know what, we're going to start trading oil for renminbis. And Jason, it really is because the credibility of the United States continues to weaken, just like the war drums that are beating. Listen, that's a credibility issue, plain and simple.
Yeah, when you had made your initial tirade at the beginning, I did say what wasn't on the air was maybe they wrote the minutes of the meeting yesterday. Maybe that's where
I'm going to say this. That's what I was going for. That was kind of my little tirade was, that's funny. Because, I mean, you came out, and again, this is what they like to do, right? They came out with the big press conference. I mean, Jay Powell talked for like 30 minutes. And none of that, what was in the quote-unquote minutes, none of that was in the press conference. None of it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and you're starting to move on with the other things that are going on. I don't trust anything these guys do. So yeah, the minutes of the meeting. Why does it take them 3 weeks to get that out to begin with? What's the holdup?
It's very funny that you say that. And back in the day, when the Fed actually, you could, I guess, could say, hey, it was truly a private organization. It didn't have members inside of the big banks. It didn't go on TV. It wasn't holding press conferences. It wasn't out there telling you, oh, we're only going to raise a quarter of a point, or we're only going to raise. The Fed used to never do that, right? And which obviously kept Wall Street from gambling more than they should. See, now, right now, what the Fed likes is Wall Street gets to gamble now because we're going to tell Wall Street what we're going to do. Right? So you can go ahead and be risky because we're going to tell you exactly what to do. So there used to be, back in the day when there was privacy, hey, we're going to have these Fed minutes. They'll come out a few weeks after we've had our meeting, and then you can read about all this stuff because they didn't have a press conference after, hey, we're going to raise interest rates by a quarter of a point. And oh, by the way, we're going to have a press conference in 10 minutes. They didn't used to do that. But it's kind of interesting now how they've made it work in their favor. We'll be back. (800-951-0592) Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Thursday. Man, everything's so unbelievable. They create this new word talking about disinflation, only to come back in 3 weeks later. Apparently, Jason, no one talked about disinflation at all. Wasn't even brought up. Matter of fact, apparently, allegedly, they were all worried about inflation getting worse. So, number one, well, wouldn't you have at least stayed at 50 basis points then? Why would you go lower if you were so worried? That's number one. And then number two, why would you come out and tell everybody about disinflation if you actually didn't believe there was disinflation, right? I mean, again, it's a credibility issue. Jay Powell's a weak pansy. I'm just telling you right now, there's a reason why all these countries are buying gold, and it has a lot to do with Joe Biden, and it has a lot to do with Jay Powell, Jason.
Well, I think this is actually a case because I think the Fed knows what they're doing. I think the faces of the Fed are just figureheads like the president, and they do what they're told. But I actually think this is a moment where they've really made a mistake. They just actually thought that inflation was going to keep coming down. I was saying on the radio the last couple of months, I thought inflation would come down for a while and then blast up. And then this thing happens, right? I saw just yesterday, I think their new numbers, the foreign holders of U.S. Treasuries, and from December of 2021 to December 2022, if you add up all the countries, there's between $400 to $500 billion less in U.S. Treasuries being held by all the other nations, which doesn't sound like a much when you have $32 trillion debt, but it's a major thing. You have countries essentially getting rid of U.S. Treasuries, and all those dollars come back here, and it doesn't matter how much you raise the rates if China and Japan and Ireland, which has dumped almost $100 billion in the last year. If countries are dumping U.S. Treasuries, Joe, the money supply will continue to get bigger, and there's nothing they can really do to stop the inflation. This is why I think the inflation's here, and it's going to rage. And then look at the geopolitical stuff. You have China and Russia meeting, and you have talks of nuclear war and everything, which we know war is going to be a great cover. they'll blame the war on whatever kind of economic disaster happens next. And so I think a lot of treasuries are coming back here, Joe. How can the Fed even lower their balance sheet if this many treasuries are coming back, right, Joe?
Well, it's going to be very, very interesting as we continue to watch. You brought up the war, a lot more of the I guess war drums beating all of a sudden here, and how serious do you think that these war drums are? I mean, is this going to be one of those things like we had in Ukraine where everybody was like, yeah, it could happen, but it's really not going to happen. And then all of a sudden it did happen, right? I mean, are we going to have that scenario? I don't know. If it is, let me tell you, the only way I see war, things get really bad. We start having a lot more debt issues than what we already know of. You brought up Ireland. The chances are that it's not Ireland, the country, necessarily selling. Ireland has a lot of the pharmaceutical companies in Ireland because of tax breaks, and a lot of companies. Listen, Apple doesn't keep money in the bank. Keep trying to tell this to people. I mean, they keep money for payroll and they got to buy parts and all that, but all their profits, they buy treasuries. That's what they do. Companies' profits are starting to fall. Matter of fact, Moderna just came out and said, uh-oh, right? I guess the COVID boom is over, right? You're going to get a lot of selling. Profits are coming down. Look at today. McKinsey, 2,000 people laid off. Wells Fargo, they're laying off as many people in their mortgage division as they possibly can. Domino's and Papa John's earnings both missed. There's all these things, but yet jobless claims remain below 200,000. But continuing claims continues to tick higher, and saying that if you do get laid off, finding that here's what it is. I think restaurants are hiring. I think bars are hiring. I think the grocery store is hiring because they know, people got better jobs during COVID. Now, all of a sudden, the hard part is once you've had that better job, those people don't want to go back into the grocery store and doing all that stuff. And Jason, they're staying out of work longer.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And I don't think a lot of the unnecessary big box stores, they're going to have layoffs here. You'll start to see the Walmarts and the Targets start to have more layoffs in the future, I think. But, with restaurants, I mean, it's an expensive way to eat, but people got to eat. The grocery stores, they're going to be there. You have to eat. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. You have to pay for it. So, but yeah, Joe, I'm sure they're hiring. They're probably doing a little bit of hot potato with the employees switching back and forth, I guess. But you're right. If you quit a job right now, be careful. It's not going to be as easy to just jump on the next one, Joe.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, unless you want to work at a fast food place or a supermarket or what have you. But again, I think, back to your point on the war thing, it's interesting that this talk is starting to heat up. Seemingly for quite honestly, I don't even know why it is and why we're seemingly hell-bent on poking the bear, sending Biden into the war zone, right? That was just done to make Russia and China upset, the whole balloon thing and all these other things. But I think that points to a bigger problem. I really do. Because if everything was going to be okay, I don't think we poke that bear, right? Because why? There's no point. But as a cover-up goes, that's what it would be. I'll give you a great example. This is how quickly things have changed. Let's take California. Now, California, it's been, and everybody that's ever listened here, you'll know this part, right? They had all kinds of pension problems, budget problems. And then, Jason, COVID came along and everything got fixed, right? Everything got fixed. And I mean, California was throwing money at people. Just as early as last year, they had $100 billion budget surplus. Now, of course, did California put that away for a rainy day? No, they pretty much spent it all. This morning, California, Gavin Newsom came out and said, right now we're projecting a $25 billion budget deficit in fiscal year 2023. And Jason, as you know, if the layoffs get worse, right, that number, that's the best case scenario number right now. And how do you go from $100 billion surplus to a $25 billion deficit? And this is how quickly things can change here. And that's a lot of money coming out of the economy. You know, think about it. That's a lot of money. And again, every state, it's not just California, you know, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, California has a bigger GDP than a lot of countries across the world. So if California has bad numbers, I'm sure it's bad for California, but it's bad for all their partners around you, right, Joe? I mean, there's definitely some weird stuff going on. You know, there's a lot of weird stuff. Maybe we'll cover some more stuff on Half Empty Cup of Joe. There's so much weird stuff going on. It feels very much like a great worldwide change is coming, because there's just the news cycle is just too strange and unbelievable to. And then here's the thing. This is why I got into gold and silver, is because the only thing you can really, really affect, the only thing you can really keep sure of yourself is your situation. I can't specifically tell Joe what to do and how to fix his thing. Joe has to figure that out, right? I can't tell my local town or the state of Colorado what to do to fix things. I could try to influence. I can go in there like some of these guys that get into politics and wave my fist and have signs and talk in front of Congress. You can do all that stuff, but really the only thing you directly affect is what you do, Joe, right? So it's how do you take care of yourself, because you can't help others and affect and be an example to others unless you fix your own thing first.
Yeah, and it's just interesting, you know, the news about Credit Suisse, nobody wants to talk about it. I looked everywhere. They don't, you know, CNBC and Fox, they don't want to talk about it. And it's just really kind of interesting here as we're starting to get, like I said, the California. That's a huge deal, because this has been a big part of growth. And now think about this. We know the tech sector slow, housing slow, autos are slow. Now, if we have a government pulling back their spending, right, Jason, a lot of these elements are starting to build up here. And then of course, this morning we got a revision to first quarter GDP, and lo and behold, it wasn't as good as they thought it would have been. Well, it came in exactly what everybody was thinking before they announced that, you know, they said 2.9, it got revised down to 2.7. And then, Jason, you know what got revised way up? Inflation. Inflation was revised way up. Consumer spending was revised way down. And again, we just keep putting the pieces of these puzzles together. And it just looks like things are going to get very interesting in these debt markets. And that's really what we got to be concerned about. People got to remember, Wall Street's a debt market, right? The bond market's a debt market, right? Most of these markets are debt markets. That's the one thing about why gold is such a great investment, because it's not a promise to pay. It's not somebody else's debt, Jason.
And you kind of touched on something that I think would be a huge indicator of things getting bad. You said there's city and state governments that are pulling back spending. You know, city and state governments don't want to pull back on spending. It's government. Yeah, they want to tax you more and spend more. So if they're going to slow down on spending, Joe, we all know what that means. I mean, the biggest job sector in the country is government jobs. If you put them all in one lump, if they can stop doing spending and be conservative with their spending, let's just say local cities and states, then the next step is what, Joe? You know, how often do you hear about government firing people? But if they start firing people, Joe, you know it's coming fast.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be that, or we're going to raise taxes, or right, or all of the above. potentially is now something that you got to consider. And again, it's just another one of these factors, and especially at a time when credibility of the central bank, credibility of who's leading this country are really at lows that we haven't seen in a really long time. I mean, who was the weakest president since, Joe Biden? Like I said, you probably got to go all the way back to Carter. When's the last time we had this big of a fool at the central bank, right? I mean, Jay Powell is literally, he's not making any sense at all right now.
Yeah, well, when he says disinflation, and the minutes come out and they talk about concern about inflation, like I said, Joe, it's a big economy to have to gauge. I think they know what's going on, but there's a lot of money moving around right now. I think they thought that the inflation was going to come down for a while, and they can sort of celebrate. And I think another couple of pieces of the puzzle are probably becoming aware to them, and they're like, uh-oh. And I think that's why everybody, even the news channels, the financial channels, they're starting to figure it out. Uh-oh, the Fed's having trouble figuring it out. And I think that scares a lot of the pro-market people, Joe.
Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. The Dow is down again right now. It's only 100 points. We'll keep our eye on it. The S&P is down 5. The NASDAQ is down 26. Gold's off $10 at $18.21. Silver's down 30 cents at $21.35. This market update brought to you by our friends over at Y Refi. Jason and I talk about them every day. Up to 10.25% guaranteed. Your interest is compounded daily. You can do what you want. You can use it as a monthly income. You can roll it back into your investment. You can do whatever you want. And Jason, it doesn't care about Fed minutes. It doesn't care about disinflation. It doesn't care about restated fourth quarter or first quarter GDP. And you know what? Quite honestly, it doesn't care that Jay Powell's a weak man, along with Joe Biden. And again, you know what? James Bullard had it right yesterday. We should get to whatever the number we say it should be. We should get to that number. And then we'll talk about what to do next. But that's just hasn't been the plan. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or 888-Y-REFI-24. So, Jason, we had a lot of stuff out today. We had jobless claims, which says hot inflation. We had revision to first quarter GDP. Now, it was revised down, but inside of it, a lot of inflation. Then we had layoffs from McKinsey and Wells Fargo. Then we had Papa John's and Domino's saying, hey, people aren't ordering as many pizzas. So these are all signs that we have to be aware of. And now all of a sudden, it's going to be interesting here in 2023 how many states start coming out and going, whoops. We miscalculated. We thought we were going to have more money, and we don't. And that's another sign about how strong the recession will be.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one, Joe, for sure. The things getting ready to happen, and I still wonder if this is going to be a slow grinding out thing. But it sure has the feel, especially with all the war drums beaten, that there's going to be at least one fast leg down somewhere here, or a couple of them. So it's the worsening factors. And here's the thing, like you said, they could just up the rates and just pull the Band-Aid off quick. I don't know why they continue to just pull this thing off slow. And I know that everybody in the news cycle says, "Oh, look at the fastest rate hikes ever." They're just going crazy about 2022 and the rate hikes going crazy. Well, that's because the inflation was crazy and crazier than maybe ever that we've experienced. They have not stopped the inflation, and the Fed has no reason for it to exist if inflation gets out of their control completely. So they're trying to play both sides, Joe. They're trying to help the markets and make it so that it's not so painful, and then they're trying to just try to keep up with the inflation a little bit at a time. It's a losing situation, and when they do lose, they'll point the fingers at whatever geopolitical thing or whatever emergency is in the news cycle.
Yeah, it's going to be something where I don't know how it all is going to play out, but it does seem like they want to play both sides of it. By the way, apparently mad cow disease, we haven't talked about mad cow disease in a long time. Apparently it's back in Brazil. Brazil, a large supplier of beef to China. That may drive up some beef prices here. So, one of the things, beef was soaring during COVID. It has come down lately. But Jason, this could be a game changer. We may have, we'll see how this plays out. But if China's going to stop buying from Brazil, that means they're probably coming over here. Let's hope now. But it's just another one of these things that's not great. Any little thing, and all of a sudden, something that may have been starting to ease, all of a sudden isn't.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna watch for, Joe. We'll see. Like, or we have those days, and you predicted that, and we may see that. And I think it's possible those up and down days in the markets, like during the COVID emergency, right? Those 2,000 points down and 1,200 points up and 1,500 points down. I mean, those dramatic. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, can you imagine what they'd be talking about? Those record days. They never talk about those days very much, do they, Joe? They don't talk about those massive turbulence in the markets. They don't talk about it at all. It's like they don't look at it.
I'm going to throw this out there. So if you are a fruits and vegetables person, you may want to get to the store today. Dole Foods has just come out. Apparently, they say they are in a midst of what they're calling a cyber attack. The company has shuttered all operations across all of North America. So I don't know how long this is going to last. I'm guessing that this is one of those ransomware things where they want Dole to pay a bunch of money in Bitcoin or something. I don't know. But they said that they have shut down the entire system throughout North America. And that's really all I know. They've sent a memo to supermarkets after customers complained about its prepackaged salads, I guess, being out of stock. So the reason why their prepackaged salads are out of stock, apparently Dole's got a problem.
A lot of those problems bubbling up, isn't there, Joe? I mean, those 3 toxic trains blowing up is the biggest one in Ohio. I heard that's going to affect food supplies dramatically. There's a lot of packaged foods that are up there, and rivers turning different colors because there's petroleum in the water. I mean, we talked last year and even the year before, all those manufacturing plants blowing up or burning down, or all these mysterious things happening. It's Biden's not going to pump any oil. How much do they need to constrain the supplies here to it's almost like they have to have this crash, and they're just having trouble getting it to happen, Joe. Don't you get that feeling? Man, why doesn't this thing just crash?
How come this hasn't worked yet? Why hasn't it worked, right? We've raised interest rate. It was supposed to work. And it hasn't worked. Why isn't it working? And again, I'll tell you why it's not working. The amount of money, we don't even know the amount. I know the amount they tell us. Hey, we took the money supply from 4 trillion to 20 trillion. Okay, that's insanity. Okay, right? That's just insanity. But Jason, we know it's so much more than that. Right? But we don't know the number. They haven't told us yet. And I'm sure we're supposed to be able to ask 2 years later through Freedom of Information Act, hey, can you tell us what you really did? Jay Powell, can you tell us what you really did? Well, no, because we're going to go to the Supreme Court, because if we told you what we really did, you may not believe anything we've been telling you. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 9.3% of all auto loans extended to people with low credit scores is now at least 30 days or more behind. What was it? A month ago, they told us, hey, the subprime auto loan delinquency, what they called seriously delinquent, meaning 90 days or more, was at 2010 levels. Now, Jason, they're saying, hey, people all of a sudden, a lot more people with these lower credit scores, looks like they missed their payment right after Christmas. Looks like they missed their payment right after Christmas.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Everybody wants to enjoy the holidays, especially if you have kids, and you need transportation. And there's a need to enjoy the holidays. It's a special time of the year for many people, and what are you going to pay, right? Well, I bought the presents for the kids, but you know what? I'm just not going to pay the credit card bill.
And this one here's the auto loan bill. So this one here, listen to this. So I thought maybe 600. No, these are people. This credit score 660 and below. So this isn't, 660 is not great. Usually when you think of bad credit, you're like, okay, your score is less than 600. So, but to 660 or below now, almost 1 in 10 are now at least 30 days or more behind on their payments. And again, I guess, Jason, we continue to watch, right? We'll continue to watch. We've seen these very similar numbers with credit cards as well, right? This is kind of a little different than, like, remember during the housing crash, right? Everyone paid their cars and their credit cards. They just didn't pay the house. Right now, the people, believe me, the last thing if you do have one of those 3% mortgages, the last thing you want to do is miss that payment, right, Jason? It's like, hey, I'll pay I won't pay anything else but that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, Joe. What do you pay? What don't you pay, right? But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people do have the extra car. So, I mean, if you got the new car and you didn't trade in the other one, you definitely don't pay the car payment, right? Some people have it. Hey, mom could walk to work if she had to, or get a ride from her friend. Dad has to have a car. So let's just not pay on the new car we bought for mom. I mean, that all makes sense, Joe. I mean, a lot of car payments could easily be, here's the other thing. This is kind of the new subprime area too, where cars are losing value right now, and people are upside down in these loans.
That's another point, you bring up, I don't know. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like the war drums that are happening out there. I think that's a sign that we're getting closer to these cracks here and what's going to happen next. I've got a really good special today. It's $250. You're going to get 2 rolls of dimes and a VG Plus. Listen, and some of these are a little better than that. VG Plus, 1921 Morgan, and a peace dollar. So a Morgan dollar, a peace dollar, and 2 rolls of dimes for $250. Jason, both the Morgan and the peace dollar in that package are $5 plus below cost. So these are some that I've had in the vault for a long time. I have 100. By the way, I don't even have 100. I have 50 because I got 100 rolls of dimes, and I've got 50 peace dollars, 50 of these 1921 Morgan dollars. So $250, 2 rolls of dimes with a Morgan dollar and a peace dollar. And those are below cost, and they're a great opportunity to pick up some silver. 800-951-0592. Jason and I were coming right back with the final segment. 800-951-0592. The Dow's down 175. Gold's down 12 as we wrap up this Thursday edition of the Patriot Radio News Hour. And it really all has to do with, well, let's just say what it is, right? It's inflation. It means rates are going higher, which means more people are going to fall behind on their autos, more people are going to fall behind on their credit cards, and more people aren't going to be able to buy a house. It's just that simple. That's exactly what's going to happen. And then on top of that, yesterday we got the announcement from the Iraqis that they will now allow all trade with China to be conducted in renminbis. As of yesterday, all trade with China and Iraq was done only in U.S. dollars. Now, I don't know. Does that mean they're going to switch it all, Jason? We don't know. But obviously another sign here of another country saying, hey, you know what? We better have something other than dollars. That's a warning. 2 rolls of dimes. That's 100 silver dimes with a Morgan dollar and a peace dollar well below cost in this package. It's only $250. We got 50 of them. Jason, kind of just a neat little deal, too. You got the 2 older silver dollars. Think about it. The Morgan dollar ran all the way till 1921. Then we had the peace, World War I ended. Oh, let's have the peace dollar. Well, that ran up until 1935. And, of course, by that time, right, World War II was getting ready to start. Then we didn't mint a silver $1 silver coin outside of a few special editions, really, till the Silver Eagle came out in 1986.
That's correct, Joe. And we'll talk about those silver peace dollars here in the future, because there's some interesting conspiracy behind why they even minted those coins to begin with, Joe. There's interesting stories with those, but yeah, these are cool coins. You want to get silver, you want to jump in. If you're one of those guys that hasn't jumped in yet, you're where I was years ago, and hey, I just want to start buying silver and gold. It's kind of exciting. It's like, well, this looks like I should be doing this. This is a great one to start with. There's very little risk.
Yeah.
You can always sell it back to us. We buy almost as regularly as we sell. And this is kind of a cool way to jump in and get silver, Joe. There's definitely some American history to these coins.
Yeah. 800-951-0592. They're only $250. It's a great way to jump in. Dow's picking up losses here, approaching down 250. I think. It's early. I don't know, but again, it looks like here that Goldilocks. We're gonna have we don't even need a soft landing. We're just gonna be Sully Sullenberger. We're gonna put it right on the Hudson River. That seems to be blowing up in flames here, Jason.
Well, that's a little, it's funny. Tom Hanks played that character in the movie, and he also played in Castaway, and they had a little bit of not a soft landing in that movie too.
Yeah. So, oh man, 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Thursday. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. Hopefully something, some form of good news would be nice, but right now it does look like, unfortunately, that too much money can't be solved until you raise interest rates a lot higher than anybody really wanted to admit. And we're going to find out how high that is before 2023 is over, is my guess. Well, again, we know when the crash happens, that's when it'll stop. 800-951-0592. Jason and I are coming right back with the half empty cup.